A political system is a set of rules and expectations that dictate how a government should function. Let's learn about it. If you want to create change and get involved in politics, it's really helpful to understand how the political system that you're living in works. You can't really change anything if you don't know what you're changing it from, after all. Understanding the political system that you're in and the power structures within it will help you target policies and make demands. We're going to be comparing the American government system to the political system of the UK Wizarding World, which has a lot of differences, but nothing helps you understand something like connecting it to something else. In the American system, there are three branches of government: the executive, legislative, and the judicial. We elect the head of the executive branch, the president, or the governor or the mayor, depending on what scale we're talking about. The executive branch is responsible for enforcing the laws. The president usually appoints the heads of different agencies in the executive branch, and each agency is responsible for implementing and enforcing different kinds of laws. The EPA handles environmental laws, the FDA handles laws about food and drugs, the Department of Education handles laws about education and implements and enforces those. And the heads of each of these agencies are usually subject to congressional approval before they can start their work. Now, in the UK Wizarding World, the head of the executive branch would be the Minister of Magic. And under him were also different kinds of agencies, from the Office of Misuse of Muggle Artifacts to the Magical Law Enforcement Department. Each department handled their own specific section, and that helped them operate independently of each other, but they all reported to the same person. The legislative branch in the American government system is made up of elected representatives in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Collectively, the Senate and the House of Representatives are referred to as the Congress. Every member of Congress is voted directly into office by their constituents or other citizens that live in the same place that they do. And they're responsible for writing and voting on the laws that they believe should be implemented in society by the executive branch. The first hint we see of government corruption is actually Arthur Weasley in the UK Wizarding World, because Arthur Weasley wrote a loophole into a law that he was writing in order to allow people to enchant Muggle artifacts as long as they didn't intend to use those enchantments. This is famously seen with the Flying Ford Angelina. He enchanted a Muggle object which was illegal, but because he didn't intend to actually use the fact that it could fly, he was fine. The third branch of American government is the judicial branch. The judicial branch is in charge of deciding the meaning of laws and how to apply those laws in real-life situations, and whether or not a law is constitutional, that is, agreeing with the U.S. Constitution. The judicial branch is made up of the court system, the highest court being the U.S. Supreme Court. Every other court in the United States bows to the precedent of the Supreme Court. It is the highest court, so everybody else follows their lead. Just like, say, Crabbe and Goyle will always follow Malfoy's lead. And we actually don't see very much of the judicial side of things in Harry Potter. We know Sirius Black famously didn't get a trial, but we also know that Harry did, and was tried instead of by the head of magical law enforcement, by the entire Wizengamot, whose head is the Minister of Magic. In the UK Wizarding World, there just really isn't a separation of powers, which is in stark contrast to the American idea that for a government to work, there should be branches of government with checks and balances on each other in order to keep the government checked and balanced, so no one person has too much power. Federal judicial appointments are for life, but on smaller scales, you can maybe vote in the judges who would be hearing your trial if you were to go to trial for something. And judges are confirmed by the legislative branch at the federal level. The legislative branch are voted in directly by the citizens every few years, and if they write a law that the executive branch doesn't want to enforce, the head of the executive branch can simply veto that law. But the legislative branch can override that veto if more than 2/3 of the legislative branch were to agree that this law is worth implementing. The legislative branch can also impeach the head of the executive branch if they believe they are unfit for office. That's just how the American political system is supposed to work, with checks and balances on each other and the three branches of government, each with their own hierarchy of powers, and they're supposed to balance out each other and work together to create our society. The UK Wizarding World doesn't really have that balance. Arthur wrote the laws that he himself was subject to, passed the laws, and enforced those laws by conducting raids on Malfoy Manor, for example. And of course, the Minister of Magic can be part of the judicial, executive, or legislative branch. It seems like the Minister of Magic can just do whatever they want. But what does the political system look like where you live? What does the power hierarchy look like? How do leaders obtain power, and how do they keep it? And what characteristics do you think are important for a head of state to have? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more from me, you can subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.